Ben Reilly accepted pretty early on that he was a clone and not the original, and for his own benefit he left New York to travel and discover himself. Still, he had Peter Parker's memories, and as such, a fondness for Aunt May. To keep in touch with her, he would call her up and pretend to be a distant relative looking to reconnect. This was an easy sell since, while his first name is a tribute to Uncle Ben, Riley is May's maiden name, helping with the illusion that he's always been family. A flashback revealed that Doc Ock actually became very fond of the Vulture during the very first team-up of the Sinister Six. Years later, when Otto was secretly operating as the Superior Spider-Man, he ran into the Vulture again. Otto initially tried to reason with them and even told him the location of a hidden stash of money the Vulture could use to skip town. Vulture believed this to be a trap and rejected it. He then sent out his little army, which turned out to just be orphan children. Otto realizes this and decides that Vulture has become too depraved and proceeds to savagely beat him. In the Marvel Universe, Empire State University has recently started a program that welcomes in students from alternate dimensions. Thanks to this, Spider-Gwen decided to attend school on Earth 616, allowing her to interact with the rest of the main continuity Spider People. Roderick Kingsley, the original Hobgoblin, eventually retired from active villainous theatrics. To continue making money, he would charge non-powered thugs to use the names of deceased supervillains. For a monthly fee, Kingsley provided them with all equipment they would need to operate.
There's been a lot of talk on the internet about Ned Leeds of the most recent Spider-Man movies to potentially take on the identity of the Hobgoblin. Now, there is some precedent in the comics for this. After all, he was unmasked as the villain. However, this wasn't always the plan. Much like the Green Goblin before him, the Hobgoblin's identity was unknown for his first several appearances, until ultimately being revealed as Ned, who, at the time, was a big part of Peter Parker's supporting cast. Thing is, this revelation came about after Roger Stern, the writer who helped come up with the character, had left the series. Stern had seemingly always intended for another character, Roderick Kingsley, to be ultimately revealed as the villain. It wouldn't be until over a decade later that Stern would have a chance to correct this, retconning Kingsley to have been the Hobgoblin, and Ned a brainwashed patsy that was forced to take the blame. Flint Marko's ability to manipulate all sand makes him particularly difficult to deal with, due to his unpredictable abilities to change his density and form simply by drawing from nearby sand. It's this constant changing and reforming that led Spider-Man to realize that there must be one consistent among all the sand. Dubbed the Soul Molecule, this grain of sand holds all of Marko's brain patterns, and if removed, will revert the rest of him back to regular sand. Mephisto is constantly seen aggravating and agitating Spider-Man and his various allies, and this is because Mephisto once had a vision that a Spider-Person would one day finally remove him from power. However, whether or not this was Peter Parker himself or Peter Parker's daughter is up for interpretation. Mary Jane was first mentioned as a potential partner to Peter Parker in Amazing Spider-Man number 15 by Aunt May, who wanted the two to meet. This dynamic would continue for 2 years until she finally debuted in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man number 42. During one of MJ's stints as an actress, she signed on to a movie dramatization of Mysterio's life. Unbeknownst to her, the director was actually Mysterio in disguise attempting to make his masterpiece. When MJ found out, instead of calling the authorities, she chose to help him and tried to nudge him in the correct direction, both creatively and morally. Despite his current reputation as one of Spider-Man's most insidious foes, there was a time when Dr. Octopus couldn't even look at Spider-Man. In the 1983 issue Spectacular Spider-Man number 79, Doc Ock is beaten soundly by an enraged Spider-Man after Ock nearly killed the Black Cat. Spider-Man then gives him a speech about how Ock can never win against him, even at his best. It's this speech, coupled with Ock's deteriorating mental state, that gives him a deep-set fear of Spider-Man and spiders in general. It would get so bad that the villain would freeze up in fear just seeing Spider-Man. This would stay a part of the character for 5 years until 1988's Amazing Spider-Man number 297, where Spider-Man lets him win, hoping that it'll dissuade him from destroying New York. This victory proves to Ock that Spider-Man is not unbeatable and cures him of his phobia. Despite being one of the most prolific and cruel villains in the Marvel Universe, Dr. Octopus refuses to harm or endanger children. This is due to traumatic memories of his childhood where he was bullied mercilessly and beaten by his abusive father. One of the many bizarre choices in the production of the Broadway fiasco Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark was the inclusion of Swiss Miss, an original character created to have a female member on the Sinister Six. This was probably done because there are no female Spider-Man villains from the comics. Beyond being overdesigned and underdeveloped, she's defeated by stabbing Electro, which electrocutes her, which is what you'd expect from a character that's half human, half Swiss Army knife. 8 years after the play ended, this remains her only appearance in any Spider-Man media.
When stressed with all his troubles, Spider-Man has been known to sneak into buildings marked for demolition and begins to destroy them to let off some steam. Steve Ditko has said that initially he wanted Spider-Man's costume to be orange and purple. Editorial suggested red and blue instead. During the Superior Spider-Man run, when Dr. Octopus was living in Peter Parker's mind, Miguel O'Hara was sent back in time to stop an event that threatened his reality's existence, which brought him into direct opposition with the fake hero. While they eventually made up and worked together, Miguel wound up stranded in the present day, forcing him to lie low and keep tabs on potential threats, while also having to contend with his wildly out-of-character counterpart.
One of the more unique alternate versions of Spider-Man is Spider-Man from Earth 11580, who, unlike other versions, is not Peter Parker or one of his supporting cast, but instead thousands of spiders who ate Peter Parker and now have his memories and personality.
It's common knowledge that Spider-Man holds back when fighting its rogues. The biggest hint we've gotten to how fierce he can be, though, is when Dr. Octopus had control of Spidey's body and fought the Scorpion. Otto obviously forgot to hold back, and when he swung at Scorpion's jaw, it flew off, leaving a horrifying bloody mess poking out of the armored suit. During the Spider-Verse event, Morlun and his family killed hundreds, if not thousands, of spider people to satiate their hunger. One Spider-Man who was spared, however, was the one from the newspaper comic strip whose universe relies heavily on recaps. Because of its cyclical nature, Morlun was unable to make any forward progress and eventually left, saving this Peter Parker from death and having to participate in the conflict. The iconic Spider-Man line,
"With great power, there must also come great responsibility,"
is often attributed to Peter's Uncle Ben. However, the quote is the final line in the original Amazing Fantasy 15 and is delivered by a faceless narrator. It wouldn't be until 1987's Spider-Man vs. Wolverine that it would be attributed to Uncle Ben, and decades after, he would say that it was the saying of his father's, Peter Parker's granddad. As many know, Miles Morales does not originate from the main Marvel continuity. He's actually from the Ultimate Universe, a continuity that was created in the early 2000s and was intended to be a less complicated version of the Marvel Universe in a more modern setting. It was destroyed in the 2015 Secret Wars event, and the vast majority of its characters were wiped from reality. However, Miles and a few other characters from both universes survived the universe restructuring into Battleworld. While Doom ruled that planet as its omnipotent ruler, the planet was actually held together by Molecule Man, a C-lister with insane power potential, and he sat alone at the planet's core. When trying to figure out how to stop Doom, both Miles and Peter Parker journeyed down to visit Molecule Man, hoping he could help. While he doesn't actively help, he does ask the two Spider-Men if they have any food, since he's constantly hungry and tired from holding the planet together. While Peter has nothing, Miles has a several-week-old hamburger he forgot to eat and gives it to him. Grateful, he tells Miles that he owes him one. At the end of the event, the Ultimate Universe is not restored, but remembering Miles' kindness, Molecule Man restores him and the rest of his supporting cast onto Earth 616.